Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I'm Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. So today's video I am extremely pumped for. I'm going over one of the most significant VR games since Half-Life Alyx. Now that might sound a bit ridiculous, but no, this is actually a game changer. All these hyperbole words, trust me guys, you want to stick around for this one because VR is entering into a whole new era now. So today I'm going to go into my first impressions for Asgard's Wrath 2 and talk about why this game is so significant for the future of the VR industry. Now there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by my sponsor Kiwi Design. They've finally released their Quest 3 Elite Strap with battery pack, and not only is it less than half the price of what Meta sells, but it also has a bigger battery and extra comfy plush material. Now, if you previously purchased a Quest 2 head strap from Kiwi, they also offer a conversion kit so it'll fit on your Quest 3. So if you're looking to increase your comfort level or battery life on your Quest 3, or need an accessory for any other headset, check out the link down in the description, and don't forget to use discount code Mateo311 for 5% off and to help support this channel. Okay, so like I said in the intro, we are entering into a whole new era for VR games. Asgard's Wrath 2 is way more significant than you may realize, and today I'll not only give you my first impressions, but also answer some extremely important questions about the future of the VR industry. If you've been waiting for years for $60 AAA titles to come to VR, well, the wait is now over. Meta's acquisition and investment into VR game studios has paid off. This standalone Quest sequel not only stands up to the original PC VR exclusive, but also surpasses it in almost every single way. Just the intro to this game is now in my top 5 VR experiences ever. Now, just how Half-Life Alyx previously became the measuring stick for all PC VR games, Asgard's Wrath 2 will do that for the Quest. It's truly that significant. I have a ton of information to go over today, but I just want to start off with a very brief recap of Asgard's Wrath 1. The original Asgard's Wrath released as a Rift exclusive back in 2019. It offered up amazing storytelling, fantastic combat mechanics, and some stunning graphics. You played as a fledgling god who not only empowered and took control over different mortal warriors, but also had the power to turn animals into mighty companions with unique abilities. Overall, Asgard's Wrath was a standout title and one of VR's very few true RPGs with a massive 40+ hour campaign. Now, lucky for us, Asgard's Wrath 2 beats out the original game in every single way, except of course for the graphics. Let's face it guys, the average PC back in 2019 was still more powerful than the mobile processor in a Quest 3, but that gap has really closed, and I will talk about this a lot more later. The graphics are definitely not a limiting factor here. Now, if you're wondering if you need to play the original game before jumping into the sequel, it's definitely not mandatory. There's a fantastic and truly cinematic recap, and the game also starts off slow enough and has changed enough mechanics that you won't need to remember the controls from the original title. Now, before we get into the basic info of Asgard's Wrath 2, and I start comparing it more directly to the original title, I just want to spend a minute giving this game an almost unlimited amount of praise. Listen up here guys, this is pretty much all you really need to know about the game. The vast majority of the time when I was playing, my jaw was agape. It was down to the floor. This title blew my off. And then when I reached down, picked it up, and reattached it, the game blew it right back off again. It is absolutely fantastic. This is Meta's Half-Life Alyx. It's a system seller, guys. Sanzaru absolutely loves VR and has solved many of its problems. They know how to show cinematics in VR, not static, bland, stand in place, watch a cutscene. No. None of that. They know how to make things unfold around you. Every aspect of this title blew my mind. I could not believe I was playing a Quest exclusive game. How's that sound? So let's get into everything that Asgard's Wrath 2 has to offer. There's a 60+ hour single player campaign. The Uncharted Rifts offer up an endlessly replayable roguelite dungeon. Combat has been reworked, and not only is it maturely themed and extremely violent, but it also feels so damn good. Enemies have adaptive AI that'll allow them to change tactics based on your actions. There's a wide variety of enemy types, weapons, and magical relics. A huge open world to explore that takes us everywhere from the mythical realms of Norse mythology to the ancient sands of Egypt. A fantastic and truly epic storyline that has you facing off against Loki himself, massive puzzles that require you to take on a godlike perspective, side activities and mini quests like crafting, fishing, and cooking, a full RPG system with unlockable skills and abilities, the added bonus of the game being completely free to anyone who purchased the Quest 3, and the developers have a long roadmap of free DLC coming in the future. Now that I've laid out everything that Asgard's Wrath 2 has to offer, let's just spend a minute comparing it to the original game. Starting with the obvious elephant in the room, yes, Asgard's Wrath 1 does look a bit better, but these side-by-side comparisons don't do the game any justice. Besides some missing lighting effects and an occasional low-resolution texture, Asgard's Wrath 2 still looks pretty damn amazing even next to its original PC VR title. It's also a testament to optimization because this title's butter smooth and doesn't rely on asynchronous space warping. So if you were afraid you were getting another Assassin's Creed Nexus, you don't have to worry about it. Now, after all that, I feel like I'm still just skimming the surface, but trust me guys, this game offers up much more than we've ever experienced from a mobile VR title. The most important aspect is the fact that Sanzaru knows how to utilize VR. There are many games that are just in VR, and they wouldn't really be any different on a flat screen, but a game like Asgard's Wrath 2 only truly works in VR. They've mastered the art of using scale and perspective during cutscenes. Both the game's recap and intro scene are perfect examples, and let me break them down for you. You're currently looking at the recap of the original Asgard's Wrath. Now, as you see, it's something similar to I Expect You to Die, where you're moving forward and the story's unfolding, except here, it is just an overwhelming delight. Like, your senses are on fire. You're getting this deep storyline, plus amazing sound effects, the haptics are going crazy, and you just feel like you're in the middle of the action. It is the best way to tell a story in VR, hands down.
Home of gods themselves. The Aesir. The Vaughn. A realm where...
Now, as we move into the game's intro, it reminded me a bit of going to Disney World and seeing one of their live action attractions. They use different special effects and maybe pyrotechnics to get you to look to certain places, and then it just unfolds around you. It was very similar. It starts off with a torch being dropped from the ceiling, which, what does it do? It gets you to immediately look up. Something that only works in VR. It just shows how much that Sanzaru understands VR. And then you see the first character of the game, and there's no better way to show off just how much of a badass he is than the scene where you follow him through a series of traps.
You're not even giving me a challenge.
Just like how playing God of War on the PlayStation 5 gets my adrenaline going during those crazy cutscenes, this is probably one of the very few VR games that has had the same effect on me during some type of cutscene. And then when you see enemies that are massive in scale, it's so damn cool in VR. Now, moving on to combat, I don't think we're really dealing with a physics-based system here, but the game definitely knows how to trick you into believing it is. There's none of those ridiculous instant block animations that we see in so many other melee titles, and instead it truly feels like you're slapping the enemy around. There's blood splatter, dismemberment, and decapitation, and best of all, it just feels good and doesn't have that same overemphasis on blocking that the original game did.
Feel that, passenger god?
Now, when you compare everything else that Asgard's Wrath 2 has to offer up against the original, it's better in every way. The combat is better, the storytelling's better, the sound design is absolutely fantastic. It's more cinematic, it's just more across the board. I'm loving it so much, I really can't get over this. I've never been this hyped in so long. Now, I do want to pump the brakes a little bit here, because after all, this is only a first impressions. I've only made it through about 1/10 of this massive game so far, so there is the possibility it becomes extremely repetitive or there's a lot of padding, but based on what I've seen right now, it's looking pretty amazing. And instead of just saying, it's great, it's great, it's great, I want to go into a lot more detail in some of these aspects and show you why they're so good. I'll give you some examples as we move forward. Now, to describe a little bit more of the gameplay here, there's some definite inspiration from God of War. They like to give you plenty of treasure and side paths, so overall there's a constant stream of instant gratification, and you really want to search every nook and cranny. They'll make you work through some clever puzzles or even backtrack for some of the more precious loot, And then the game's also broken up with excellent combat, cleverly designed puzzles that require you to switch between God and mortal mode, epic boss fights that have you taking down some truly unique creatures, and feeling like a true badass as you call forth lightning from the heavens. And the game will also constantly change things up as you switch between different mortal warriors with unique abilities, and also create some new animal companions. Now my adrenaline is pumping just talking about this game, but let's switch gears for a moment and discuss what impact it'll have on the overall VR industry. Now, I truly believe that this game could be a system seller and even a nail in the coffin to PC VR. Now, I will stop and take a second after a statement like that because I know a few people have just been triggered. I know there's still plenty of things that PC VR offers that you can't get on Quest, but let's just face the fact that standalone VR is way more popular and Meta is making sure to show us that we don't need a PC anymore. I know some people are upset that this game's not coming to PC, especially if the original title was PC VR only, but overall it's not worth the resources for the much smaller PC VR community, and Meta wants nothing to do with PC VR going forward. Now, after the release of Asgard's Wrath 2, I know the average Quest game won't be as good, just like the average PC VR game is not as good as Half-Life Alyx. But now we know it's truly possible for standalone VR. Assassin's Creed Nexus was just a tiny tease next to this game. Asgard's Wrath 2 has impressed me more than I ever expected. It's clear that a significant amount of time, money, and love was poured into this game. So if Meta can continue to do this with all of the other studios they've acquired, it's going to be an insane 2024 and beyond. I am blown away, guys. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. I'd love to answer you. I think I went over the majority and didn't want to get too rambly. I'm sure I did, but I'm just so impressed. I can't believe it, guys. This is absolutely insane. Truly impressive title. I'm going to jump back in right now. I'm trying not to play too much because they're going to reset my progress. I'm on a pre-release build and I pumped like 10 hours in, and that's going to have to replay all that. And I don't have a lot of free time, so that's going to hurt. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, thumbs up. Thanks for dealing with me rambling a bit and going on and on about this game. But when I like something, I make sure you guys know it. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And as always, I'll see you guys on next time.